You found your way to Whispers of Crimes, a quiet corner where the shadows of the past are gently told. Here, we speak of real crimes and mysteries, not to shock or scare, but to wonder, to reflect, and maybe to help you fall asleep. So close your eyes, let your thoughts slow down, and come with me into tonight's case. Beneath an ordinary home in Austria, a father hid a secret so monstrous it shocked the world. For 24 years, Josef Fritzl held his daughter captive in a hidden cellar, abusing her, fathering her children, and fooling everyone above ground. What seemed like a missing persons case was actually a horror unfolding just beneath their feet. This is the chilling story of the Fritzl case, where evil lived right under the floorboards. Chapter 1: A Quiet Life in Amstetten. Amstetten, a picturesque town in Lower Austria, was the last place anyone would expect to harbor one of the most horrifying secrets of the 21st century. To neighbors and acquaintances, Josef Fritzl was a strict but unremarkable electrical engineer. He lived with his wife, Rosemarie, in a seemingly typical suburban home. Born in 1935, Fritzl had a troubled early life. His father abandoned the family, and his mother was allegedly abusive. Some early warning signs emerged, but they were either ignored or minimized. In 1967, he was convicted of the rape of a 24-year-old nurse and served only 12 months of an 18-month sentence. He also had a record for indecent exposure. Despite these convictions, Austrian authorities later admitted that background checks failed to flag him as dangerous. Fritzl built a successful image, a self-made man with a penchant for property development. However, beneath the surface, he was building something far more sinister. By the 1980s, Fritzl began constructing a secret cellar beneath his home, deceiving building inspectors and obtaining permits under the pretense of storage expansion. The dungeon was fortified with soundproof walls, secure metal doors, and a complex locking mechanism. No one suspected that he was designing it not for storage, but for captivity. Chapter 2: The Disappearance of Elisabeth Fritzl. Elisabeth Fritzl, Josef's daughter, was born in 1966 and had endured sexual abuse by her father starting at the age of 11. She reportedly attempted to escape once, even staying with a friend for a few weeks in her teens. At 18, she was preparing to leave the family home permanently when her father offered her a job opportunity, which would become a trap. On August 28, 1984, Josef lured Elisabeth into the newly constructed basement under the pretense of helping him install a door. Once inside, he incapacitated her using an ether-soaked cloth and locked her inside a concealed section of the cellar. To cover his crime, Fritzl crafted an elaborate lie. He told Rosemarie that Elisabeth had run away to join a cult and even produced a forged letter from her claiming she didn't want to be found. Authorities believed this story, especially after more letters appeared over the years, all fabricated by Fritzl and coerced from Elisabeth under threat. For the next 24 years, Elisabeth would live in complete isolation, hidden just meters beneath the home where her mother and siblings resided, enduring unspeakable trauma. Chapter 3: Life Underground. Elisabeth's Imprisonment. The dungeon measured around 55 square meters, about the size of a modest apartment. It consisted of a small sleeping area, a rudimentary kitchen, a bathroom, and a hidden passage that Fritzl sealed with an electronic lock. The space had no natural light and poor ventilation. Initially, Elisabeth was chained to a metal post for months before being unshackled. Her days followed a strict pattern dictated by Fritzl. He visited almost daily, bringing food, supplies, and later, items for their children. During these visits, he repeatedly raped Elisabeth. Over the 24 years, she gave birth to 7 children. One died shortly after birth, with Fritzl disposing of the infant's body in an incinerator. 3 of the children, Kirsten, Stefan, and Felix, remained in the cellar. The other 3, Lisa, Monica, and Alexander, were taken upstairs and raised by Fritzl and Rosemarie under the pretense that Elisabeth had abandoned them on their doorstep. Conditions in the cellar were dire. The children never saw sunlight, had minimal medical care, and were educated only by their mother using a television, books, and self-made lessons. They experienced constant fear, noise from upstairs, and the unpredictable terror of their father's visits. Chapter 4. Cracks in the Lie. Kirsten's illness. The chain of lies unraveled in April 2008. Kirsten, the oldest daughter in the cellar, fell gravely ill due to a severe infection. Elisabeth begged Fritzl to get her medical help. Knowing he couldn't treat Kirsten underground, Fritzl brought her to a hospital, claiming she had been left at his doorstep by Elisabeth. Doctors found Kirsten in critical condition, undernourished, with decayed teeth and unable to speak coherently. Suspicious of Fritzl's story, hospital staff contacted police. An appeal for the mother to come forward was broadcast on television. Seeing the news, Fritzl realized the story was collapsing. He allowed Elisabeth to come upstairs to explain Kirsten's origins to the authorities. When Elisabeth arrived at the hospital under guard, she initially followed Fritzl's story. But after police promised she would never have to see her father again, she told them everything. The police immediately arrested Fritzl, and the unimaginable reality of the last 2 decades began to unfold in horrifying detail. Chapter 5. The investigation and evidence after Fritzl's arrest. Authorities discovered the hidden cellar behind a reinforced door in the basement of his home. The room was accessed via multiple electronic locks and concealed by a bookcase. Investigators found the cramped, dank quarters that had been Elisabeth and her children's prison. The air was foul, the walls were soundproofed, and crude furniture filled the space. A collection of videotapes, notes, and handwritten records revealed Fritzl's meticulous control over every aspect of the victims' lives. Fritzl admitted to imprisoning Elisabeth, raping her thousands of times, and fathering her children. He justified his actions with twisted logic, claiming he was protecting her from drugs and bad influences. His behavior showed classic signs of narcissistic personality disorder and delusional thinking. Though a full psychiatric evaluation declared him competent to stand trial, the children were placed under medical and psychological care. Some had to be taught how to walk upright, while others struggled to adapt to light, fresh air, and social interaction. The family was relocated to a secure, undisclosed location in Austria for recovery and protection. Chapter 6. Trial and sentencing. Josef Fritzl's trial began on March 16, 2009, in St. Po am Ladelton, Austria. He faced a total of 6 charges: murder, rape, incest, coercion, false imprisonment, and slavery. He initially pleaded not guilty to murder and grievous assault, but changed his plea after Elisabeth testified via video. The court was visibly shaken by the footage of the dungeon and the testimony of the victim. On March 19, 2009, after 4 days of proceedings, the jury found Fritzl guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to life imprisonment in a facility for the criminally insane. He showed little emotion during the sentencing. He was later transferred to the Stein prison, one of Austria's most secure facilities. Public reaction was one of global shock and horror. The case triggered an international debate about how such an atrocity could go unnoticed for so long, prompting significant changes in child protection laws and improvements in social services oversight across Europe. Chapter 7. Aftermath and Legacy. The long-term psychological damage to Elisabeth and her children is profound, but they have attempted to rebuild their lives away from the spotlight. Elisabeth was reportedly given a new identity, and she formed a bond with her children upstairs, whom she had never known during captivity. Therapists worked intensively with all survivors to help them adjust to freedom, routine life, and a world that had changed dramatically over 2 decades. In Austria, the case led to nationwide introspection. Critics condemned the lack of investigation into Fritzl's earlier crimes and the blind acceptance of his cult story excuse for Elisabeth's disappearance. It also raised serious ethical questions about privacy laws, domestic inspection protocols, and how societies treat victims of long-term abuse. Josef Fritzl later changed his name to Josef Meyerhoff in prison in an attempt to escape notoriety, but he remains one of the most reviled criminals in modern European history. In 2023, reports indicated he was suffering from dementia and had withdrawn from most social contact within the prison system. The Fritzl case remains one of the most disturbing and complex examples of long-term captivity and familial abuse ever recorded. It is a grim reminder that true horror can sometimes hide in the most ordinary places, behind closed doors, beneath family homes, and within people we think we know. That's all for tonight's story. Another thread in the web of true crime, quietly unraveling as the night goes on. If you're still with me, thanks for listening. And if sleep has already taken you, may your dreams be peaceful and your mind at ease. I'll be here next time by the fire with another story waiting to be told. Good night, and don't forget to lock your doors.